Good afternoon. Welcome to the LeBar Performance Hall. Today we're going to be listening to a musical performance and conversation between Dana Gioia, who many of you already know, and J.J. Wright. J.J. Wright is a Grammy Award-winning composer, conductor, and pianist who currently serves as the director of the University of Notre Dame Folk Choir. He is the composer of O Emmanuel, a 2016 Adventide album that drew upon jazz and sacred music traditions and debuted as #1 on the Billboard Traditional Classical Albums chart. Wright has recorded 3 additional albums with the Notre Dame Folk Choir, including The Passion, a staged rendition of the scriptural story that has been performed in churches and performing arts centers up and down the East Coast, most prominently at the Town Hall in New York City and the Strathmore Music Center in Bethesda, Maryland. Wright is a graduate of the University of Notre Dame, where he earned Master of Sacred Music and Doctor of Musical Arts degrees, and of the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music, where he earned a Bachelor of Arts.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this poorly attended concert. There's room on the floor for anyone young enough to be able to get up afterwards. And there's a few seats over there for the people like me that are old and falling apart. Welcome to this performance conversation. Actually, this kind of concert has been fundamental to the Catholic Literary Imagination program since the beginning. On our first time that we did the conference at USC, we put on, as part of the program, an opera by St. Hildegard von Bingen. Each of the other times at Fordham, at Chicago, we had concerts. The last time we had a jazz concert with Helen Sung in Dallas at University of Dallas. And so when we came to Notre Dame said, well, we want to do a concert, and they had all of these different ideas of, really interesting things to do. And I said, well, there's a composer at Notre Dame that I've heard some music by, and I'd like to take this fascinating composer who's on your faculty and introduce him to people who are not from Notre Dame, people from all over the country. And so I pestered J.J. Wright with a phone call, and poor fellow was very agreeable, and so I immediately talked him into it. And I wanted to bring J.J. Wright's music to, I didn't imagine the 1,200 conferees, but that's how many it's turned out to be. And it's really for 3 reasons. The first and foremost is that he is an original and accomplished composer who's really quite unlike any other academic composer that I know. Secondly, he has perfected a musical style that I would say of fuse and focus. He has fused contemporary musical styles, jazz, classical, and sacred traditions, but he has taken this new style and he's focused it overwhelmingly on sacred music. The only other composer that I know that has done this so well and with such focus has been Morton Lauridsen out in the Pacific Northwest. And it is a pleasure to come to Notre Dame and to have the chance to honor one of the many artists who have been associated with Notre Dame. Now, when people talk about J.J. Wright, I guess when they're not gossiping, they always say, well, the phrase that I've seen critics again and again is that he fuses J.S. Bach and Thelonious Monk. That he's got sort of jazz and pop inflected sacred music. But I actually hear his style, I hear that, and I don't think that's untrue, but I think it's a slight misdirection. What I hear in J.J. Wright's music is what I think of as an authentic form of postmodernism. We, as we're now well into the 21st century, live in perhaps the first period on the earth in which we can simultaneously hear all the music of the past and the world. I mean, it's overwhelming and it's delicious. But so it's not really a composer in 18th century Mannheim hearing the other composers of Mannheim. You're now hearing all the world and all the past. And there's really only two possible responses to this. The first is the typical academic one, which is, I will develop a theory and do everything according to the theory. Or, and this is what I like about JJ's music, I can take what I love and I can compose music out of all the music that I hear that I love. And I think you'll hear that in a sense because our hearts and our imaginations are very large. So what JJ has done in his music, and he's not alone in this, but I think he's exemplary in this, is he's refused to honor the conventional barriers between high art and low art, between pop music and classical music, between jazz and quasi-improvised music even, and scored classical music. He basically assimilates anything he needs to create the work he's creating. And he's rejected the modernist notion, and this has been in place now for over 100 years, that a serious composer has to in some way alienate or subjugate his audience. It's usually his audience too, because this is a very Austrian male tradition, going back to Schoenberg, Berg, and Webern. And so what I hear in JJ's music is Bach, Benjamin Britten, Arvo Pärt, Sir James Macmillan, Duke Ellington, Thelonious Monk, and Dave Brubeck. In fact, I hear everything in JJ's music except the sounds you make in the kitchen sink. And I think that's exciting because the works are both different from one another and wonderful in themselves. But before JJ and I talk, I want you to hear a piece of his music. Will you introduce it?
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you so much, Dana, for your kind words. It's truly an honor and privilege to be sitting next to you. And I remember when Dana first called me on the phone, he said, "It's Dana Gioia." And I said, "You've got the wrong number." I mean, I've known Dana's work for many years and have looked up to him as someone who has really done so many of the things that you so kindly said about me with your poetry and writing and the way that you've been present to the world through your career. So just thank you so much for this opportunity and for...
You're very welcome, but I want to hear your music.
Yes. So the song we're going to play for you is called Beside My Shepherd Again. And this is a newer composition for a project based around the resurrection. This piece takes place in a scene about the road to Emmaus. I co-wrote this song with a longtime collaborator of mine named Tristan Cooley, who's here, a wonderful poet and playwright.
Tristan, identify yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Aha! Good.
And so this piece is for all of us, choir, strings, and trio, and I hope you enjoy it.
JJ, you were born in Buffalo, New York. I hope when you grew up you ate some Gioia pasta.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no relation. You go to New York City, you're studying jazz, and then 4 years later you find yourself at Notre Dame studying sacred music. What happened? Did you go to school, to the jazz school with that intention, or what happened along the way?
Oh, I didn't expect that at all. Although I did grow up going to Catholic school, playing for liturgical choir in high school, and working in churches basically since I was old enough to drive. And
I heard a little gospel in your piano.
yeah. I always wish I could play gospel, but I mostly fake it. But yeah, I went to IU Bloomington for my freshman year of college and found it wasn't quite for me at that time, and went out and worked on a cruise ship. And that was a really important experience for me, just because it was my first kind of real professional experience. And at 18 years old, that's exactly what I wanted to be doing, just kind of like getting crushed, if you will, on the gig. But from there, I got this job in the Navy, so I played in the Naval Academy Band in Annapolis, Maryland, and there I was quite unhappy, if I'm totally honest, in that job. Here I was, kind of like with this incredible opportunity to learn from all of these wonderful musicians, and I just couldn't quite figure out why it was that I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I do remember a friend, one of my best friends at the time, he'd given me this Mere Christianity, actually, by C.S. Lewis. And I was never a big reader. During high school, all I did was play the piano. And so I didn't really read books until I was 18 or 19 years old. And I was just enraptured with this book. And then of course, I had to read all of C.S. Lewis's books. And then I had to read all of G.K. Chesterton's books. And then from there, I kind of discovered that it was possible to read.
So it took an Anglican to bring you into Catholic music.
Yes.
Typical.
Yeah. But these things, they helped me kind of integrate what I loved with what I aspired to be.
Okay. And did you first write sacred music before you came to Notre Dame?
No, I kind of was interested in writing jazz music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of went all in on jazz after high school, and that's what I did. I just played jazz as much as I could. I met this guy, Nathan, 20 years ago, actually, when I was 19 in Baltimore, and we've been playing for that long. But yeah, while I was in the Navy, I met my wife, and we both grew up in Buffalo, and we got married and moved to New York City so I could finish my undergrad at the new school.
Yeah.
And it was there we had our first two kids, and soon after we had our first child, we needed to increase our income, and found a job at a parish, kind of as a full-time music director, and realized that I really loved doing that. It wasn't something that I expected to happen, but I was like, oh, I know the Mass and I know music. But once I started doing it, realized I really didn't know anything about the tradition of it or how to do it.
Well, there's a real gap between what you learn as a jazz musician and what you need as a choral composer, choral director. I mean, you see, Duke Ellington did some choral pieces. Dave Brubeck did a lot of choral pieces. What was the big learning for you in terms of doing your first real choral composition? And then I want to hear one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the big thing with writing choral music is just the writing is different. You have to write differently for the voice than you do for piano or for bass or for drums or strings or any other instrument, because people are breathing, of course, but also singers, they don't have buttons to press, and so you have to be very thoughtful about the way that you create transitions or write lines for them. And of course, the best people who have ever written for the voice have all come from the lineage of sacred music.
I was going to ask you, have you ever sung regularly or professionally?
No, I sung for the first time when I came to Notre Dame. So I was not ever in a choir. And then I was 24 years old, and I was with all of these people who had rightly gotten in for conducting, and I somehow squeaked through. And
we'll talk about that in a second. I want to hear what you've done with voices. And there are no buttons to push?
Why don't we do the Our Father? Okay, so this is a setting of the Our Father. the prayer we all know. This is a cappella. This comes from a piece called Vespers for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, which I wrote for a concert that took place on December 7th, 2014. And Matt Eulery here, our wonderful bass player, played on that concert, actually, which is really fun. And this piece, you're going to hear the words that you know, but you're going to hear them repeated many times, kind of like a stutter. And at this time, my family and I were going through a difficult time, and this piece was in response to this difficult time. And I thought, when I had to write this Our Father, I thought the best thing I could do would be to mumble my way through it. And so this piece is some kind of attempt at saying the Our Father in a time of despair.
As you made this transition from jazz, which is quasi-improvisational, I think, probably, or if not entirely improvisational in your style, how did you bring that kind of surprising energy, that kind of unpredictable energy that jazz has, because of its very nature, into music that's entirely written? Mm-hmm. I mean, because I don't think any of you made up your notes, at least intentionally.
I think in that piece, at least, the biggest thing that I would have brought from my jazz study would just be the harmonic language. There are things that are immediately kind of more coming from the jazz tradition in a piece like that. But I think the biggest thing would be when you're trained as a jazz musician, you are constantly urged to find something new in each moment through your presence in that moment. And so that is applicable to all things in life, of course, especially all types of music. And so as a conductor, as someone who's leading an ensemble, that discipline, I think, trained me to try to just always be looking at what's happening when we're performing and be looking out for the group so that we can really come together to communicate the musical idea we're after and the emotional idea we're after.
Well, that leads me to ask about, you're sort of a triple threat. You're a performer, you're a composer, and you became a conductor, and that's sort of the order I think it happened in, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Although in jazz, the performer to a certain degree is the creator. So you have to then. Did you have to learn to be a conductor to be able to get the effects that you used to be able to get as a performer?
Absolutely, and that was why I wanted to be a conductor, because I remember talking to my teacher, Carmen Elena Tejas, who has since passed away, but she was an incredible teacher, incredibly forceful, but through that sort of force, really helped me understand what it meant to be a conductor, and her insistence was always that what the conductor does is really about leading people in a very conventional way. And that's what I wanted to learn how to do. As a jazz musician, it's very, it's either super collective or it's super individual, I would say. It kind of goes on one extreme or the other when you're getting trained in the music. And I really wanted to learn what it was like to organize performances, to really be able to coalesce a full group in order to make this statement.
Well, that's actually a perfect lead into my next question, which is that, okay, you've been doing jazz pieces. You're probably doing rather short pieces, as you learn composition. But the thing that's remarkable about you is that you're almost as prolific as a Mozart. I mean, you've got multiple Vespers, Masses, you've got Passion, you have Christmas cantatas, you have set a remarkable number of the sacred texts, and so there's a kind of tremendous channel of creativity that you're going on versus the kind of person, and I know a lot of composers like this that'll spend a year not writing the same piece.
Yeah, right.
Now, what was the first big sacred form that you undertook?
So,
and are you happy with the results?
Yeah, technically, it's this trio record that I did in 2013. I wrote it for my senior recital at the New School, and it was 4 piano trio. It's 5 pieces that are all connected, not really thematically, but they are connected sort of spiritually and emotionally. And I remember I had this kind of inspiration. You said something when we were talking the other day about I'm given the first line, and that really struck me, because oftentimes when I'm starting a new piece, I don't even know yet that I'm starting a new piece. And I was given kind of the outline for the entire thing. And then, of course, the devil's in the details with trying to figure out what's under the hood. But yeah, I was given this set of 5 pieces for my jazz piano trio. And so that was kind of my first attempt at creating a larger scale work that had an arc over top the whole 5 movements, if you will.
But I'm thinking more, though, of one of the great sacred texts, like
Sure.
a Passion or the Vespers. I mean, could you actually play a portion of a larger performance, a larger work, just so we could hear it? And then I want to talk about it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll do... Are you guys ready to sing yet, or... You are? Okay. All right, we'll do Rex, which there's a bunch of copies of this going around. And this is... we have 2 songs from this work called O Emmanuel, which is originally written for the Notre Dame Children's Choir here in town. And this is kind of like an Advent oratorio, and uses the text of the O antiphons, which are the antiphons for Vespers and the 7 days leading up to Christmas Eve. So the one we're going to play is called Rex, from the antiphon, O Rex Gentium, O King of the Nations. And the translation that you'll see, it comes from a poet named Malcolm Guite, who is a British poet, and was generous enough to let me use this text. It's just the kind of last 4 lines of the sonnet that he wrote based on the antiphon. But we'll sing a verse for you, and then the verse will happen 3 times. So we'd love if you would join us on the 2nd and 3rd verses.
as a music critic, when I would cover concerts and during periods of my life, I'd always look at the chorus, and I'd look at the chorus and I say, are they suffering? Are they sweating? Or are they swinging? And these guys were swinging.
Yeah, I agree.
Even these people were moving like normal human beings. I thought was very impressive for an audience.
For a conference audience, yeah.
So you've played an excerpt from what was your breakthrough piece. I mean, O Emmanuel was hit the Billboard charts, been recorded. And it's really, in some ways, your signature piece. What did you learn at doing that? And I was trying to figure out whether, what I would call it. I thought maybe Christmas cantata, Christmas oratorio. You're very coy about how you label it. So you wrote this, in some ways, Christmas oratorio involving children, too. What did you learn from having to put that together as a choral piece versus an instrumental piece, as a long piece versus a short piece?
Yeah, such an incredible amount. Mostly just about like very ordinary things. Like, what does it mean to get 50 children to concentrate for 35 minutes?
A miracle.
Yes, yeah. And but it really kind of hones your efficiency, if you will, in your composition, because you have to. At least when I was doing it, I was constantly challenging myself to think like a 12-year-old, and could I focus on this? Could I be interested? Could this be something while I'm learning it for the 3 months that builds up to the performance that keeps me interested over that amount of time? And is this something that's actually edifying for me as a human being? And I think the texts themselves offer so much, right? These are ancient texts that have been put through the ringer and are proven to be just beautiful images for God and guidance for life. But that's probably the biggest thing, I think, just trying to figure out how to be as efficient as possible with the people who are going to ultimately perform the work.
I mean, if you don't know this piece, it is an extraordinarily beautiful, surprising, and resourceful piece. I mean, there's a kind of an abundance of musical ideas in this that are various and yet unified. Okay, well, you put yourself in a terrible situation in American culture. You're creating sacred music, which is, God knows, unforgivable. It's accessible. It swings and it sings. How do you feel your reception has been by your fellow composers?
I don't know. That's a good question. Composers are an interesting bunch, as you know, right? They're very
they're as bad as poets.
Yeah, they're an isolated people, and a lot of our craft happens by ourselves in a room, just like a lot of all of my fellow musicians know so much about this. You spend so much time trying to perfect the craft that you oftentimes forget that you're part of these interlocking communities that we're all kind of dependent on. And so to answer your question, I don't know. I don't like hang out with other composers as much as I would like to, but it's not like a very extroverted group either. So
the economics of scarcity is what applies rather than the joy of abundance.
Exactly.
So what was it, as you work through these classic genres, I mean, like what was it like to write your first passion?
Oh, man. A passion is a terrifying genre because, Bach, in my opinion, is the best composer to ever live, and he wrote the perfect ones, the St. Matthew and the St. John, and these pieces of music are just so transcendent. But I think the longer I've been a musician, the more I've appreciated the idea that, Bach's great pieces like the B minor Mass and these passions were things that were compiled over long periods of time, and they were compiled as part of a working church environment, and that really challenges you to create things that can kind of stand on their own, but it also allows you the opportunity to frequently come back and revise. And as any artist knows, like the real work happens when you begin to revise your own work, right? It's you never quite get there with the first pass, except for like that one or two times that keep you coming back forever, right? But But yeah, as a church musician, you know, in the Catholic Church, we have a 3-year tradition of reading. So these readings are always coming back. With the choir that I work with, we get to work on the same pieces kind of every 3 years too. So it gives you this chance to just keep coming back to the well. With the Passion in particular, it's scary because it's about the worst things in humanity. And so you're kind of, it's like you're coming face to face with the devil or something like that. You know, it's and I think once I never have really gotten over that idea. It never stops being that when you encounter the Passion, and that's part of the rhythm of our life, I think. But the story itself, I think, one of my big kind of social motivations for creating the work of the Passion was to learn more about and try to somehow understand the clergy sexual abuse crisis in the Catholic Church, and to ask myself and to ask my students, what does it mean to be a member of this church where this thing has happened? And there's any number of issues, of course, that you could ask this question about. And I think, you know, as people of faith, this is a great posture to take on. How could I possibly be a part of this, and what does it mean for me to carry this tradition forward in light of all the things that are part of it? So that was really what the Passion helped me, and I hope the communities that were able to perform it come to grips with, in a sense.
What shall we hear next? Do I recall correctly that you have a setting of a psalm?
I do.
Because right now you have a class with students learning the Psalms, and out of that learning, culminating in their own setting and performance of one of them.
That's right.
So did you set them a good or bad example?
I hope this is a good one. This is our favorite piece. It's upbeat, it's fun. This is Psalm 113. It's just the end of the psalm.
Okay.
So praise, O servants of the Lord, is the text, and then we hear the Gloria as if it were during evening prayer. So this is from that same piece, Vespers for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And this is just like an excerpt from that.
Good.
Yeah.
JJ, didn't any of your professors tell you that you're not supposed to have fun in contemporary music or sacred music? I mean,
Yeah, I think mostly they just look the other way, I think.
yeah, no, this is the joy, but also just the piano fingerwork was terrific.
Thank you.
Well, so you have, I mean, this piece would be a perfect example. You have put together things that shouldn't be normally thought of as being together. I mean, everything from fugal, passages to bebop, to hand signals between you and your percussionist. And so, what do what is the how do I put this? It seems to me that you've assimilated in a way which is inimitable. That you've created a style which you really can't imitate, unless you start at the very beginning and put together the pieces of it. And that seems to me a sign of a distinctive and original composer. I mean, is this something that you consciously did, or is it just your instincts in terms of composing these music?
I think both things. I wanted to figure out how to be as good of a composer as I could be, and one of this piece is an interesting example, actually. So I had to, for our second year master's recital or doctoral recital, or so one of these recitals, it was called Performing the Scholarship. And one of the essential pieces of this recital was that you had to create performing editions of pieces that didn't have performing editions, right? So my recital date was December 7th. And I thought, well, that would be a perfect day to set Vespers for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. And as part of this Performing the Scholarship thing, I took a Carissimi Salve Regina. He's a 17th century Italian composer, beautiful 3-voice piece, and I just transcribed it from the sources. And just like you talked about this in our class the other day, where if you want to learn a discipline, you just copy the people who are really good at it and literally sit there and copy it down. And so that's what I did with that Salve Regina. It became the hymn at the beginning of this Vesper service. Found a fun connection. There's a Charpentier. It was a student of Carissimi in Rome. And while he was in Rome, he wrote this Magnificat setting for SATB, four sections and 2 violins and basso continuo. And so I did the same thing with that. I just copied it down, made a modern edition of this piece, and it became part of this Vespers. And so then the challenge became like, okay, these are the bookends of the piece or the service, if you will. Like, how do you get in and out of these things without just completely jarring a listener? And what you just heard was the kind of first psalm, Psalm 113. But at the antiphon for this psalm is, "I will make you enemies, you and the woman," from Genesis, right after Eve and Adam have eaten the fruit, and so it starts very dramatically, and there's this incredibly drama-filled and very dissonant entrance to this piece, and that's what comes out of the Carissimi Salve Regina. And so, like, this type of joy is in response to that darkness at the beginning of the piece too, which you didn't get to hear, but yeah, the way what you said, I love. The more I can learn from the people who do it the best, or the more any of us can learn from the people who do it the best, the better we can be at our craft.
Music tends to be created in one of 2 ways. Sometimes the idea, the notion comes to you, you create it for a specific choral or instrumental, performative group, but mostly composers create music because they're asked to create it for a particular occasion, a particular performing group. What piece do you want to be asked to compose next?
Man, that's a great question. I mean,
And how much would it cost?
Oh, several
Without
million.
padding the bills.
Several million. Yeah. No, I'd love to write a Magnificat. I think that would be a really fun thing to do. I was talking to Daniel, our violinist, yesterday, and he's like, "Why haven't you written just a mass setting that we could use at mass?" I mean, that's a perennially difficult challenge if anyone's ever tried it. The texts don't necessarily lend themselves really well to the rhythm of conventional phrasing, but it is something that I would love to do. So,
if you did the Magnificat, would you do it in Latin or English or both?
I think it would depend what the commissioner would want and what the use case was, right? Because the context for writing a piece determines everything about how you write it, right? So we talked about the children's choir. It's like, I'm going to write a piece for children much different than I'm going to write it for if I had this group, for example. And that starts from the very moment of conception of the piece, right? You're just
How much of your music do you write for the level of a normal chorus, which is usually mostly amateur with one or two soloists?
Not that much, which it's always in tension with kind of like a convention, right? Like the major Catholic publishers that publish our liturgical music in the U.S. are always looking for things that anyone can sing, and I've never been able to just write a generic piece for random usage, right? Like I'll sit down to try, and it just doesn't come out. It's much easier. Maybe it's more fulfilling. I don't know what the answer is, but it's much easier. And really, I've only been successful at writing pieces when it's for a specific occasion. But going back to your question about Bach, I think as a church musician, that was also his kind of bread and butter. It's like you write a piece for a specific use case, and then over time, as maybe people get to know it or different people try it, it opens itself up in a way that you never would have expected. When I wrote Rex, I never would have expected that I could invite 100 people to sing it with us and that it would be this beautiful experience for all of us. So that's just a really delightful thing to have happen.
You must have a certain creative security, though, in having a rhythm group.
Oh.
That basically you've been with so long that you can really trust.
Yeah. Yeah, they help a lot. Yeah, it's nice because my left hand isn't the best on the piano.
Because that's very Bachian. Because Bach, knew his specific singers.
Yeah.
And
he wrote for them.
Yeah, and he played the organ,
right.
so he could trust the organist, and so it gave him a kind of foundation for everything else. And I think that's what. You've got this jazz trio that seems foundational in most of the pieces we've performed.
Yeah.
Now, I think we have two more things to perform. What do you want to perform first?
Let's do the trio piece first, and then we've got a fun one to finish with. This is called JTC1, and this is from that trio record I mentioned earlier. This was the first piece that I wrote, and like I said, it was one of those ones where you just got the whole thing for free. So yeah, hope you enjoy it. That's Nathan Elman Bell on the drums and Matt Eulery on the bass.
We've heard all this, but we're really not so impressed that I can not ask you the next question. What next?
Oh, well, we wrote a passion, and now we're in the middle of writing a resurrection. So, and it's just been an absolute delight. Of course, writing a passion has its extreme heaviness to it. People know this feeling when we go through Holy Week, right? There's this, the penitence and the self-reflection, and all of that is good and true and important, and it's only half of the story, if you will, right? Or not the full story, rather. And so the promise that the resurrection brings, I think, is something that I don't quite understand, and I hope that by entering into this music and entering it into it with our students here, we can really uncover what the whole Paschal mystery might have to offer, and hopefully, as a piece of art, can really express the entirety of that.
Now, in musical terms, what's the scope and structure of it?
So it's a 2-act work. It's about 2 hours long, and it's going to be for full chorus, a band, strings, winds, and it has spoken dialogue. So there's drama as part of it, and this drama is sort of interwoven within this new music and scripture and poetry, and kind of like it's like an opera or a musical or something like that.
Well, a lot of the passions have, like Penderecki's Passion,
Right.
it has the speaker in it very powerfully. When could we expect to hear this work?
We're actually premiering it in California in May.
Oh, good.
So
Where?
we'll be in Southern California, in Los Angeles, in Orange County, San Diego, maybe Palm Springs, maybe Arizona.
So, and what the actual premiere will be at what venue?
There's one at St. Monica's, which is in
yeah?
Santa Monica, and then hopefully one at Christ Cathedral in Orange County.
Yes.
We're still in the midst of, and anyone who's planned tours knows the
Good.
struggle, but
Well,
yeah.
We look forward to it.
Thanks.
If you have some time, I wrote with James McMillan the piece to inaugurate
Right.
the new Christ Cathedral, and I think the person that sponsored me for that might be interested in sponsoring you for that. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're running a little bit close to time, so I think we should do the last piece, and then if we have time, we can do some questions.
Sure, that's great.
Will you introduce it?
Yes, this one is called Orion. So this is another piece from the O Emmanuel work. This is the 5th movement. Radiant Dawn is the translation of the this is one of those pieces where I'm sure you know this feeling, Dana, when you get the seed of a piece and you say, no, not that. I don't really want to, I didn't want that to be this. I didn't want this to be that, And, but it's super fun, and I don't know why I felt like that. Maybe I was just being a curmudgeon, but.
JJ, I could frankly spend the rest of the day and evening just hearing your work and these fantastic, completely, sort of committed performances. It is overwhelming in terms of just the joy and the quality and the originality of this music. So thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
And thank all of you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, can we give it up for all our all the musicians here?
I feel very bad. I keep turning my back on you, so my apologies. But I think we have time for a couple of questions if we can, make them, relatively to the point. Do we have, sir? Stand so we can all hear you.
Thank you very much. This is amazing. Dana mentioned earlier Dave Brubeck. That's the tradition. I'm also wondering about Mary Lou Williams. Can you say a bit about how your work fits into that larger history?
Yeah. For my dissertation, I did kind of a detailed study of a work from Dave Brubeck, from Mary Lou Williams, and from Duke Ellington each. And my hope was really to understand how they set the stage for jazz music to be something that could kind of lift the eyes of the faithful in a sacred context. And I think all three of them did that to different degrees. Mary Lou and Dave Brubeck, of course, were Catholics themselves. But I love their work. I've learned a lot from them and hope that I can honor them with the things that I'm doing here.
Another question anywhere? Oh, sorry.
I do have a question. I myself am an amateur composer, I have no practice of it, but other than fiddling and piano. But I'm wondering, where do your not pads come from? Because I myself have experienced this. I'm interested as to where you find them.
Sure. Well, I could talk about that one in particular. So, I'd gotten this what I thought was very important commission, right? And when someone asks you to write, it's such an honor, but such pressure too. You want to do it justice, and it was like, oh, will you write this sacred music piece? And so I sat down, I assembled the text. I have a way of kind of starting the process, and once I had the text assembled, a composer mentor of mine had this great advice, which was kind of use your gut, scan the text, and pick the one that at that moment just resonates the most. And you kind of act like a crazy person a little bit. Enunciate the text in all kinds of different ways, yell it, whisper it, walk around your room as fast as you can, And so that was the text that stuck out to me. And it was for the children's choir. And I thought, it had to be this sort of really profound and deep work. And that was the idea that came. And I was like, oh man, that doesn't, I don't know if that's it, And so, but ultimately I had to go with my gut on that. And I'm glad that I did. I mean, you don't know, at least I don't know why certain ideas resonate and others don't. But I do trust that process of seeing if it can be, seeing where the text is kind of attuned to who I am and where I am.
I think we have time for one more question. Do we? Sir?
Sure. JJ, I love how you come from the jazz tradition where it's really clear that you have to be a musician among musicians. And so you learn so much from the other musicians, and a lot of what you create is in response to what the other musicians are doing. But I'd love to hear, with your permission, what your other musicians think of playing your work. What is their favorite piece? Why musically is that the case? What's it like playing this with you?
I think I'll have to pay them extra if they answer, but are you up for it? Sure. Okay.
Thanks. Hi. Thanks for thinking about us. I mean, part of what I think if I can just speak for maybe Nathan and I both, we've never actually played together. We just met yesterday, which is true. But JJ had a vision. Part of what's special about playing jazz music, or something that's created in the moment by specific people, is that it is very much specific people. So JJ's vision to call the two of us who don't live in town or anywhere near each other, in fact, like, these are the people I can call upon to trust with creating this in real time for one time only in this version. So we're just up for the challenge. That's and trust that JJ's thought about it enough where it's like, of course, this is easy. This is fun and easy. And that's how about being a great band leader, producer, composer is like calling the right people. And clearly, he has called all the right people today.
The question? Or do you wanna-
We got time for one quick one.
We got one quick question we can still
There is
do.
one,
If
yeah.
Going. Aha.
Can we sing Rex again?
We could sing one verse out. You guys want to do that? Okay, cool. Before we do, I just want to thank all of our musicians up here, Daniel, Yumbi, Rose, Justin, Aubrey, all of our singers. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and to Nathan and Matt for putting this all together very quickly and so admirably. So let's give it up for them one more time.
Thank you, J.J. Wright and company.